Who gives your children their names? You do until they're old enough and they don't like the name you gave them, they'll pick their own. But it's a right we all have. And the nice thing about that, within that, it left the rights of liberty and our citizenship unaltered. Okay, so if you're getting the protection of your rights in a country like the Canadian Bill of Rights, would you want to leave this country? Or would you want that protection? You want that citizenship. Okay, so that's how we saw the first one, when my name was spelt in traditional upper and lower case. Then I had some other papers which reflected the second one, capitis diminutio media. Have any of you ever seen your name written like, was just the last name capitalized? I had papers like that, and I'm going, well, it's just it looked like a typo. We never really even give it any thought. What that is, though, when we look at it within this structure here, capitis diminutio media. Capitalization diminish your rights to the medium. A lesser or medium loss of status. This occurs where a man loses his rights of citizenship, but without losing his liberty. It carried away with it also his family rights. So you got to look at that. You're still free, but you have no legal system to protect you. And if all your rights and freedoms are recognized and protected under the Canadian Bill of Rights, would you want to leave your country? But when you voluntarily accept this, and this is how my summons was, you basically left your country. And I had my summons, and I held it up to the judge, and I said, Your Honor, if I accept this, will you protect my rights? First he goes, no, and then he went on to explain, but the whole audience went, whoa. Because what that would have done is effectively had you voluntarily leave your country, lose the protection of the Canadian Bill of Rights. And just the simple fact that I addressed it saying, you know, I want you to change it then, he said it doesn't matter because I brought it to his attention, it became an irregularity. So that was, my summons was like that. Then I had these other papers called capitis diminutio maxima. Now we look at this. Have you ever seen your name written like that? Full capitalized. If you haven't, flip open your wallet, your purse, start reading it. Where this falls under is the highest or most comprehensive loss of status. This occurred where a man's condition was changed from one of freedom to one of bondage, when he became a slave. And it swept away with it all rights of citizenship and all family rights. So you're just basically a slave. So we've got to look at these three structures, and this is my lay of information. I'm sure we've all seen a lot of stuff. Is this us as a natural person? Could this be us as a natural person? We'll look at this one. Could this be us as a natural person? Technically, yes and no. We'll say yes, but what it really is a human being without a legal system. So if the legal system acknowledges natural person, then yeah, it is. We've only seen this one, this capitis diminutio media, in a couple cases. One on diplomatic ID. Who can break a law in this country and not be punished? Diplomats. Two, on a children's registration. That's a tricky one. And we have to think about why would they do that? Well, because Canada is part of the UN. And one of the ideas of the UN is all those human rights are supposed to be taught profusely within a society. How many people here have learned about their human rights in school? See, if you get outlawed when you go to school, and that's what we're doing, we're outlawing our children, we're sending them outside the legal system, that where you're outlawing them to is not part of the UN, so that requirement's not there. Just by the stroke of a pen, by not seeing things for what they are. And this other one here, could this be us? Well, if this was us, that means we were just enslaved. And that in and of itself would be a violation of the UN, it would be a violation of the Crimes Against Humanity Act, violation of so many other laws. This could not be us. But if you created an artificial person who had no human rights, would this be violating anything if you enslaved them? So we look at this as the artificial person, and this is a human being without a legal system, and this is a natural person recognized and protected in the legal system. So the thing is how do we connect these artificial people? Okay? How do they make that joinder to that? And that's really where the word is. The only word we can find that fits into this is the word joinder. But before I go to that, I want to sort of touch on this. Now, what you just laid out here was a very structural format, but you'll never always see it used that way. See, they knew, as they created this, the odds of getting every bureaucrat at every level behind every desk adhering to that would be very slim to none. Okay? So they made a rule that allowed them to break this rule. And it's Section 38 of the Federal Interpretation Act, talking about common names. You'll find the same clause in every Provincial Interpretation Act. It goes, the name commonly applied to any country, body, place, body, corporation, society, officer, functionary, person, party, or thing means the country, place, body, corporation, society, officer, functionary, person, party, or thing to which the name is commonly applied, although the name is not in its formal or extended designation. So if this is the formal name of this entity, it doesn't matter if they go J.Doe in upper and lower case or do it reverse. It doesn't matter until it gets to the point that it actually becomes a contract. Okay, and we'll show that a little bit later. So what you'll find though is don't look for a strict adherence to it. What you need to do is, if you're in question of whether they're talking to an artificial person or the natural person, is you got to find the source of creation. Which jurisdiction, which legislation are they speaking to you through? Okay. So again, this course here, the other course goes a little bit more deep to analyze that here. But how do they create this connection between us as natural persons and these artificial persons? It's this word we call joinder. It's the joining or coupling together, uniting two or more constituents or elements into one. Uniting one person in some legal step or proceeding, a union or occurrence. So there's a way that we can become a representative joined to these artificial persons. How must it occur though? Voluntary, unconstrained by interference, unimpelled by another's influence, spontaneous and acting for oneself, proceeding from the free and unrestricted will of the person. See, they're very aware of your free will, and they're very aware they cannot force you to represent these guys. So they need you to get to believe that you have to do it. See, when I stood there in court that day, even though I have a social insurance number, even though there are times I like representing the taxpayer, that moment in court, I did not want to represent him. And so they had to because I wasn't representing, they had no choice. They couldn't trap me back into it. That's the power of your free will, is when you know who you are, you know also who you're not. Now, why must it be voluntary? We looked at this already. No one should be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms. And to force you to represent these artificial persons is a form of slavery, servitude. So how can it occur, though? And this is usually how it occurs. This is probably the number one way most of us have been attached to these artificial persons without human rights. It's tacit, it's existing, inferred, or understood without being openly expressed or stated, implied by silence. If you don't say no, you just said yes. So when someone says, are you the tax, or, what's a good example? Well, the judge, he held up my lay of information. He'd go, are you Russell Anthony Perisky? I said, I don't know, I can't see what you're reading. You see, I'm not going to say yes or no to that question until I know who you're really talking about. Because once you understand there's a duality and someone says something that sounds like your name, maybe he's asking for this guy. Let's see what you're talking about. So the lay of information had that. I said, no, that's not me. Change it to this, and I'll be here. So this is called tacit acceptance. It's a civil law concept. Again, it's repugnant to common law. A tacit acceptance of an inheritance takes place when some act is done by the person which necessarily supposes his intention to accept, and which he would have no right to do but in his capacity as that person. And that's your capacity as a natural person having the right to contract and enter into these agreements, whether you know it or not. So it's understanding the duality of person and this multidimensional illusion that they've created of law, of who you are and what you have to say yes to and what you don't have to. So why was there a need for this illusion? All we looked at, this whole thing of capitalization and all this creation of artificial persons and stuff. Why did they need it? Well, in a society where there is no illusion, you don't need to create all this stuff. But when you understand that there are other people who are trying to basically enslave us on it, the answer to that question will lie within the creation of this country. Okay? It's under the British North American Act. We're told now it's the Constitution Act, but that's what it started as, the B&A Act of 18. Without this, Canada did not exist. It's a statute law from Britain which allowed for the formation of Canada. It's the Act for the Union of Canada, which is Upper and Lower Canada, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and the government thereof, and for purposes connected therewith. Okay, it's a statute of Great Britain. It goes, whereas the provinces of Canada, which was Quebec and Ontario at the time, Nova Scotia and New Brunswick have expressed the desire to be federally united into one dominion under the Crown of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, with a constitution similar in principle to that of the United Kingdom. See, we're told, and they hold this up, hey people, here's your constitution. It's even named that. No, this is not our constitution. This is the B&A Act. This is a rule book for how our government's supposed to be structured and what they're supposed to obey. Our constitution is similar in principle to that of the United Kingdom, which is what? The Magna Carta, Act of Settlement, Bills of Rights. See, the United Kingdom's constitution actually took about 500 years to develop. And because some of the documents, like the Magna Carta, from today's standard, it's sexist, it's racist, it's a whole 9 yards, it could not be brought in word for word. But the principles of what they were trying to express were there, that we're all free, we're all equal, and we have these rights. So that's what they brought in. Okay, they brought in the principles of the Magna Carta, not the words of the Magna Carta, the essence of it. And whereas such a union would be conducive to the welfare of the provinces and promote the interests of the British Empire. And this is where we go back to that 1950 Supreme Court ruling. To me, it's one of the best history lessons you'll ever have. It'll really show you what this country really is and its true structure. And it'll start answering these